Renee might be joining us here. She's having some computer issues with her surges she had last week and the lack of electric for 3 days. So she's still working on it. Anyway, welcome to the Zoom Rock Room. And we were going to have a conversation about today's today is two special days. Um, First of all, it's National Chicken Wing Day. I don't know if you knew that or not. Everybody likes wings. Today you should be having wings right now. Okay. Trivia question. Anybody ever know when do you know when Kentucky Fried Chicken actually opened? Have a guess?
Something.
Anybody have any guesses? Just shout it out. You don't have to put it into the chat room. 1952.
Oh,
Although Colonel
wow.
Sanders was doing his chicken as far as back into the 1930s. But Kentucky Fried Chicken itself opened in 1952. And heaven forbid that we have a Zoom rock room on a day that's called International Joke Day. So we got two of them for you tonight. For our cat, I have replaced the litter box with a Fed X box. Hey, there's Renee.
I made it.
And I am our cat box is now a FedEx X box. So when the litter box gets filled, I all I gotta do is tape it up and put it on the front porch, and somebody will steal it. So and speaking of geology and water, I know a man that told me he's having trouble paying his water bill. So I sent him a get well soon card. Uh, you have to think about that one too.
Yes.
We already played the trivia game there, Renee, when you came in
Oh, I missed it.
about the chicken. Yeah. So anyway, National Wing Day and International Joke Day. Um, so okay, we're going to move on into the intro, and wait, can you believe, Renee? This is the 148th episode.
And you've done a few episodes over the years. Goodness.
Yeah, we've done a couple. So if you don't know me, I'm Jerry Jones and Renee Widener over there. And always presented by Lair Architect in Lake Havasu City. And we are gearing up for our big 150th show coming up in August. Lair Architect's been with us since the beginning of April of 2020 is when we started the Zoom Rock Room. Some of you were our charter members. You have been with us since then. We thank you for your dedication to coming on board with us. It used to be every Tuesday for a while, and then we went to every first and third Tuesday after COVID kind of settled down. So Later Architect's been with us since the beginning too. Um, Once we heard that there was actually a thing called Zoom, we went to work and got them to sponsor the possibility of doing it and not having to charge you anything as a membership. So if you're just joining us tonight, welcome aboard. And Buttonwood Nature Center, Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. They are busy. The new property is open. All kind of cool things going on. They had their big seafood fundraiser last week. So check out the Buttonwood Nature Center Facebook page or website for all the activities. Retro Rocks in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, on Columbia Avenue. They supply us gifts, presents when we need them. I still have some here to send out to some of you people from a couple months ago, actually. And Renee wants me to buy her this painted on the white marble by famed natural artist, history artist, Rulio. We'll see if that ends up on her disc or not. Wade Kraut, Red Lion Telescopes. Uh, Basically outside of Red Lion, in his house, he has a showroom, all types of telescopes. For your first telescope or your third telescope, whatever you part of technology you want to get into. And he actually had some newer generation telescopes that only do pretty much astrophotography. And you don't really need to know much about astronomy to do that. The telescope kind of does the work for you. So it's really, really interesting. So if you're interested in doing that, give Wade a phone call or send him an email, and he'll get you all lined up. Um, Here's our schedule coming up. July 15th, that's in 2 weeks from tonight. This should be a cool program. Joseph Lee, who's a consulting geologist, going to be talking about fracking and earthquakes. Are they related? And he's going to answer those questions for you. So you folks might want to come in here loaded with your questions for Joseph. I personally don't know him. I was given his name by a retired geologist that I know that knows of him. August the 5th, we're going to be it's a vacation night for Renee and I as far as not having a Zoom because I will be elsewhere. And
I was gonna say, where are you taking me, Jerry?
you're going you're going along the Sweet Arrow Lake, aren't you?
Oh, sure.
I'm, do, I'm doing volcanoes and earthquakes that night up at the Sweet Arrow Lake in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. August the 19th, here it is, the 150th episode. Celebration and salute. Renee doesn't know this yet, but it's going to be more of we're going to have some special guests on board. We're going to ask you, the Zoom Rock Room members, that you have anything you want to say, salute, rate. You can send them. You can send them on in to me, and we'll get them on the air. 150th. We won't necessarily have a typical program at night. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be some special guests that have been with us before, and maybe some other surprises. And we're going to start working now on our fall schedule, starting in September. Actually, the day or so out, day after Labor Day. So we will be working on that in the next week. Actually, starting to get our fall schedule put together, mostly with academic people coming back to work. For me, I've had a great time in the last week or so talking about the history of the Susquehanna River and did a walk at Chickies Rock for the Riverfest weekend in Columbia and Wrightsville and Marietta, and had a good attendance for both my programs. So actually, a week from tonight, July 8th, Sam Lewis State Park outside of Wrightsville in York County. We're going to do the geology walk at 6 o'clock. So if you do want to come to that, if you're in the area, we are going to meet in the back side of the park down what I call by the baseball field, uh, in the back parking lot, as I would call it. July 13th, Sunday afternoon, Wallace Cross Mill down in southern York County. Gonna be fossil day at Wallace Cross Mill, all afternoon, 1:30 to 4:30. And then here's the program I was just telling you about at Sweet Arrow Lake County Park. Volcanoes and earthquakes are going to happen at 6 o'clock at night. And we usually have a good attendance when we go up there. We find out that Tuesday nights are pretty good for programs at Sweet Arrow Lake, which I really love. The park itself and the personnel that's there. Good friend of a good friend of ours. So anyway, if you're in that part of the state, August the 5th, bring your family, grandparents, grandkids, whatever, on over. Last call. Bus trip to Delta into the Slate region. Into actually just less than 2 weeks, July 14th, and 8:30 to 3 p.m. And this is final call because registration is going to close. We don't have a full bus, but we certainly have enough to do the bus trip. And your cost uh, includes the bus and a nice lunch. We're going to have lunch at the Funkhauser Quarry, which is going to be a real cool setting to have lunch in their pavilion at Funkhauser's. So anyway, uh, not too late to sign up if you do it really soon, like tomorrow. One of the things I did this past week actually this past Friday, uh, this is Matt Flosser, his wife's great great uncle was Atreus Weiner. You might have remembered I did a program about Atreus a couple of years ago now, probably. Atreus was a local York County native. Actually, he was the superintendent of York City schools, and he spent his spare time looking for dinosaur footprints and other fossils like trilobites. And Matt's done a considerable amount of history of his family, including with Atreus. And Matt wanted to come to York County. He does live outside York County. He came into York County Friday, and I took him around to 4 sites that Atreus explored, discovered. Actually, where Matt's standing there, that's a quarry up near York Haven, Pennsylvania, where Atreus actually did find a number of foot tracks of dinosaurs and drew them and mapped them out very accurately, sort of thing. So that was a cool thing to do, um, to retrace Atreus' steps. If you remember the dinosaur Atreapis, that dinosaur was named after Atreus Weiner. So kind of an important guy. Renee, this is yours.
Oh, we got Paddle for the Park coming up next weekend. So it's my brainchild. You can come out and play a game of go fish while you canoe, paddleboard, or kayak from launch to launch around the park. The best hand of Go Fish wins a prize. It's a fundraiser for the park. And actually, grand prize this year, we actually had a brand new kayak donated. So you could win a kayak, even though
Wow.
you probably already have one if you're playing the game. But you can never have too many kayaks.
I'll be doing a chicken barbecue while you're doing that.
Well, I might have to come get some lunch.
No, I might have to deliver. Okay.
You delivered last year, so nah, that was year before.
That was 2 years ago. Okay. Hey, I just been asked to include this from our friend Mike Davis here in York. He's going to be selling some, he calls them the Pennsylvania um, collection grade specimens. Mike is a collector of mostly Pennsylvania minerals, and he lives here in York. And he wants to do these showings. If you want to come in his house and see what he has to sell, get a hold of him. Of course, we are recording this, so it's going to be on the recording, but you can send him an email at making a difference to at verizon.net or call him at 717-841-0000. 5015 and make an appointment to come to York and see what Mike has to offer. So I just told him that we would put that little splash on there. Lancaster County Fossil Mineral Club coming up in end of July, 26th and 27th at the Lancaster Farm and Home Center. It's going to be their Christmas in July extravaganza. So you don't want to miss this. It's a pretty neat thing to do, and a lot of tables of dealers and all kind of stuff going on. So put that in your calendar if you're looking to go someplace. I just threw this in, where our fireworks made from, as we're going to celebrate our July 4th in a few days. So we use these elements to make different colors of fireworks. Strontium, calcium, sodium, barium, copper, strontium, magnesium, and aluminum are used in different colored fireworks. So minerals are everywhere, as you can see. All right. I'm going to stop sharing that one. Two
Gary,
items.
if I can,
Yep,
there's a saying I like to give my kids that if it can't be grown, it has to be mined.
that's right. Yep, can't be grown. It has to be mined. That's right. Two items came up today on a hotline today that I just wanted to bring to your attention. I might send them out for interesting reading for y'all. Um, but there was an announcement made that there's a new geological paper out. The oldest rocks in the world are now believed to have been found in north of Quebec, Canada. 4.3 billion years old. Okay, it's it's basically at the end of the first chapter of the Earth's history when our Earth was just a big magma ball. We weren't solid yet, and these rocks are representing the end of that era with some new dating. They use radiometric dating, but several new elements. So there's a new paper out about that. And also, it's been in the news a couple of times, but White Sands National Park in New Mexico. A few years ago, they found footprints, fossilized human footprints, and it's been debated about. But now there's been a number of dating tools used on those footprints, and they're all coming up with the age that those footprints are 23,000 years old, and it's kind of now being being accepted by archaeologists that these are 23,000 years old, which represents some of the oldest proof that humans were in North America 23,000 years ago. Our guest tonight might want to differ with that a little bit, but that's been verified now. So couple cool things that I just could add verbally tonight and not to the program. So anybody else have any news you want to share? I'm glad, Renee, you got your mice running there and getting the electric running, and you got the mice running the wheel and all that. So,
Yeah, I feel like I've had mice on wheels for the whole week. I have a feeling that that's what my computer issue was. The power outage gave it a little issue. That
yeah,
maybe Meta will buy me a new computer.
it's good to see you.
I made it. That's what matters.
Anybody else have any other news? I know you're here not to hear me. You're here to hear our speaker tonight because Mr. Paul Nevin. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. I guess he calls me a friend, although we've had some debates that he probably doesn't wish that we had. But but Paul is a long time amateur archaeologist, and he's a very clever person that's a good observations. He finds a lot of things that I don't see that he brings to my attention that I should pay attention to. But uh, he actually hits me up a lot of times with questions I don't expect, and I have to find answers for him. We worked on a few projects in the past. He is the president of the Lower Susquehanna um, Archaeological Society, and he's also the board member of the Eastern States Rock Art Research Association. And I call him, Paul is the person to be talking about the Susquehanna River petroglyphs in the lower Susquehanna River. So I heard this program a couple of months ago and convinced him he needs to come into the Zoom rock room to tell you what he knows about the petroglyphs on the lower Susquehanna River. It's all yours, Paul. Oh, I don't hear you.
You don't hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I don't know what that happened. Um, Anyhow, thanks for having me here tonight. I told Jerry I would try to keep it short, so I'm not going to talk about any of the arguments that we've had over various things in the past, and I'm not going to talk anything about the makeup of the rocks at Safe Harbor. So Jerry wants to chime in at the end and give the geology, mineralogy of the sites. Um, Go for it, Jerry.
All
So
right.
okay, so let's get started here. I'll see if I can get pulled up on the screen. I think this is it. Okay. Does that look good?
You got it.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the petroglyphs on the Susquehanna River. Um, we have a really an amazing cultural resource there that a lot of people just are totally unaware of. Trying to advance here. Let's try this one. Okay. So, what's a petroglyph? Start with the basics here. Well, the petroglyphs are a type of rock art. There's several different forms that I have illustrated here that range from pictographs, which are painted images, to megaliths like Stonehenge, petriforms, which are rocks that are laid out in a specific pattern, and geoglyphs, which are like the lines, the Nazca lines in Peru, where the earth has been scraped to create images that are visible from the sky. Petroglyphs are images that are carved into rock surfaces. And the Susquehanna River is really a special place because the lower Susquehanna, about a 25-mile stretch from below Columbia to just below the Maryland line, contain probably the largest number of petroglyphs in the Northeast United States. Unfortunately, because of the hydroelectric plants and the dams, most of these are underwater. Many of them have been removed, but the one site that I'm going to talk about the most the petroglyphs at Safe Harbor, is still the largest publicly accessible rock art site in the Northeast United States. So a really significant um, cultural resource here. So I'll just do a little refresher on the Susquehanna River. I'm sure you're all familiar that starts in Cooperstown, New York, runs 444 miles down to the head of the Chesapeake Bay, which is, of course, also part of the Susquehanna River. It's just been flooded for the last 12,000 years or so. Drains 27,000 plus square miles, half of Pennsylvania, part of New York, and part of Maryland. And it contributes half of the fresh water to the Chesapeake Bay. And of course, it is also one of the oldest rivers in the world. And depending on what kind of qualifier you put on there, I would put it at least at the top three. And if you talk to Jerry, we could go a little bit older than 325 million years. So when you're talking about your fossils, those guys were living when when the river was flowing. So we look at the Susquehanna River watershed, and it turns out that all of the major Native American rock art sites in that 27,000 square mile area are located on the Susquehanna in a 27-mile stretch, Columbia to Baldfriar, Maryland. One of the mysteries of these sites are why there are so many different styles of carvings. Three really completely different looking kind of petroglyphs. The petroglyphs at Safe Harbor are very similar to Native American petroglyphs that we find around the Great Lakes area up in the Canadian Shield and to the Northeast United States. On the left there, we see petroglyphs on Walnut Island, which almost look like a Asian writing, very abstract designs. And on the right there are Baldfriar petroglyphs, which was probably the largest group of rock art sites in northern Maryland. They they could be interpreted as fish, maybe cornhusk masks. I think some of them look like amoeba, but really interesting designs. Here's a couple other images of the Walnut Island petroglyph. So for you who are familiar with the river, the Walnut Island petroglyphs were located between Turkey Hill and Safe Harbor Dam on an island that was covered with walnut trees. There was a sawmill there, and at one point the race for the mill washed out and exposed these rocks that had the carvings on them, leading archaeologists to wonder how old they are, that they would have been under some of them under several feet of sediment. When Safe Harbor Dam was being prepared to be built, there was a major archaeological expedition that where the state of Pennsylvania actually removed a number of the petroglyphs from the bedrock of the island. There are about 68 sections of them. They actually ran about 1,000 feet of iron pipe from a compressor mounted on a railroad car out to the island, and then they transported them through the rapids to the Conestoga River um, in that little boat that you see in the bottom photo there. Um, they also made plaster casts. There was a book written by the head leader of the expedition, Donald Cadzel, Pennsylvania's first state archaeologist, and that book became a really a classic in archaeological literature. 1934 that came out. The petroglyphs themselves were moved to a warehouse at Fort Indian Town Gap, where they were kept in less than ideal conditions until the early 1990s. We were able to convince the State Museum to move them to a better location. They took them to the car wash, power washed off all the bird droppings that were covering them. And now you can see some of them at the State Museum in Harrisburg. Some are at the Blue Rock Heritage Center in Washington Borough, and also the Conestoga Area Historical Society. I was actually introduced to the petroglyphs through one of the results of this expedition. If you've ever been at Indian Steps Museum, you've seen the models of Little Indian Rock and Cresswell Rock that were done as part of this expedition. However, when I was there in the 1960s and 70s, the text that went along to that exhibit said that these petroglyphs were now underwater, which is what a lot of people thought 40 years or so ago. Baldfriar petroglyphs were located at a place that was originally known as Baldfriar Ford, eventually Baldfriar Ferry. It was called Baldfriar because there was a large quartz boulder in the middle of the river that looked like I guess like a bald friar's head. You can see the different images on the rocks on many islands in that part of the river. Just like the Walnut Island petroglyphs, there was an effort to recover many of these when the Conowingo Dam was being constructed. They were to be put on display for all future generations of Marylanders to enjoy. They started in the city of Baltimore, were moved up to the Baltimore Zoo, and by the 1960s, they were pretty much also forgotten about. We went on a quest in the 1990s to try to locate them again. We were alerted by a retired groundskeeper at Druid Hill Park that there was a pile of rocks near their maintenance shed. And lo and behold, when we rooted through the poison ivy and honeysuckle and multiflora rose, we recovered them once again. They are now down at the Jefferson Patterson Conservation Facility in Southern Maryland, but there are also a number of those that are on display in various museums in Maryland, the closest of which is at Susquehanna State Park, just over the Maryland line. In addition to those three large sites, there's also several smaller sites on that 25-mile stretch of river. Cresswell Rock, which was located just at the base of Turkey Hill. Sicily Island, which is just below Holtwood Dam. McCall's Ferry was recorded in the late 1800s. We have been unable to rediscover that rock, however. There are also what are called shaft polishing stones, grooves that were cut into rocks that were supposedly used by the Susquehanna people to sharpen their spears on, located in Staмен's Run in Washington Borough. So, a whole bunch of sites with probably thousands of petroglyphs. At least 1,000 have been recorded. There could have been that many more that are waiting for the dams to go away and to be exposed again in the future. So, it begs the question: why are they here? Well, just as many of you see the lower Susquehanna as a special landscape, I think Native people for the ages also saw it as a special place. We take a look at Benjamin Latrobe's 1801 map of the river, which starts right at Columbia and Wrightsville. And you can see how the river is very wide, the widest point on the entire Susquehanna. When you get to Turkey Hill, it narrows down into this narrow, deeper, steeper place that some of us fondly call the Susquehanna Gorge. A really dramatic hillsides, faster moving water, and a character that's much different than the first 400 miles of the river. So if we take a look at how fast the river falls, you can see that up in New York, it's dropping 3 feet per mile, and into Pennsylvania, 2 feet, 2.5 feet. When we get to Lancaster County, it drops off. That's why we have 4 hydroelectric plants on that stretch of the river. We're down up to more like 8 feet per mile. Some of you might be familiar with this geologic feature of the Susquehanna called the deeps. And these deeps are really deep. So imagine going down the rapids that once existed along Turkey Hill, water 6 feet deep, 10 feet deep. All of a sudden, you come to a hole in the river where it's 60 feet deep. And for the next quarter mile and 100 yards wide, the river is 60 feet deep. It's filled in with silt now. I don't know that there are some explanations to how they were formed, but basically huge amounts of water. One theory is that ice rumbling around in the deeps would carve them out, or rocks. But that's not the deepest deep. Below Holtwood Dam, there was one that was over 120 feet deep. And down in Maryland, behind what's now Conowingo Dam, was one called Job's Hole that some people said was bottomless. Some people say that it connected with the Chesapeake Bay and it was an underground river. At any rate, kind of really amazing geologic features. And just another view, but just to give you an idea of the deep at behind Conowingo Dam, it actually goes below sea level. So this is Safe Harbor area, looking from Big Indian Rock, and in the mist in the background is Safe Harbor Dam, the railroad bridge, which is now the Enola low-grade rail trail. you can see back there in the fog. As I've mentioned, the petroglyphs were studied in the 1930s, but they were actually known about as far back as 1865, uh, when members of the Linnaean Society of Lancaster um, did rubbings, photographed the rubbings, and this is the Professor Porter's chart up in the upper left-hand corner there, shows the first rendering of the safe harbor petroglyphs. I think I added one. Yeah, there's safe Professor Porter's chart. It's still over at the North Museum in Lancaster. 1870 or so, a gentleman from Harrisburg went out, did another rubbing on muslin. Somehow that made its way out to Ohio. And there was a society out there, the Western Reserve Society in Ohio, actually made another chart of the petroglyphs, and I like the etching that they made of a view of Big Indian Rock back in the 1870s. You can see how that compares with how the rock actually looks. It was written about by Garrick Mallory in a publication at Smithsonian. Uh, Actually, their first publication carried a article on the petroglyphs. But I want to talk about Henry Mercer's visit. Henry Mercer visited the petroglyphs in 1885. He drew these two sketches here, and as I was alluding to, by that point, they did acquire a certain amount of fame. And he talks about how the afternoon he went to see them was indescribably pleasant, which many days are on the Susquehanna. And he found the famous Indian rock inscribed with many forms of this great hawk or thunderbird. Has anyone heard of Henry Mercer? If you've ever driven through Doylestown, Pennsylvania, above Philadelphia, you may have seen a couple of his constructions there. He was not only an archaeologist, he was trained as an attorney. He collected free industrial tools, created a concrete museum. The Bucks County Historical Society Mercer Museum has an amazing collection of his artifacts. That the picture on the right is actually, I think, from his house, which is also an amazing concrete construction. The photo on the left is of one of his other enterprises, the Moravian Tile Works, where they made handcrafted tiles during the arts and arts and crafts period in American architecture. Well, turns out that Henry Mercer's largest commission for the Moravian Tile Works was for the state capitol in Pennsylvania. And he used some of those sketches that he made when he was visiting there to create mosaics that help tell the story of Pennsylvania's cultural and natural history. So if you go into the state capitol and the main rotunda there, you can still see 6 of those images in the tile floor, which I think is pretty cool. Well, this fame that they had garnered in the late 1800s and in the 1930s faded. And by the 1960s, you can see that publications like this volume, The Rock Art of the American Indian, described the safe harbor sites as now destroyed. So I'm the kind of guy, and Jerry can tell you, can confirm this, that I things like that don't deter me from investigating. I was interested in the Native American culture, and I thought even if these things are underwater, I would like just to experience the place where they were. So I bought a canoe and started paddling around on the Susquehanna. And sure enough, bumped into Big Indian Rock. Um, 40 years or so ago, and I'm still excited about the place after all these years. So, 40 years ago, rock art did not get the respect that it gets nowadays. The state archaeologist back then was contacted by a rock art researcher out in Pittsburgh. He asked if the sites had ever been given archaeological site numbers. And the state archaeologist said, no, there's no need to. We never found any Indian artifacts there. You can see that the rock art researcher made a snide remark afterwards, but now we do regard the petroglyphs as artifacts. In fact, each one has its own identifying number and has been cataloged. This is the first petroglyph that I came across. I had Donald Cadzow's book. It described about where the sites were located. And when I was paddling by where that red arrow is there, I looked down and saw that four-legged creature with the long tail right at the surface of the water. And that's what got me excited. Turns out that there are actually 6 rocks that we know of. Actually, there's 7 that we know of in that area just below Safe Harbor Dam, from beginning just a couple hundred yards below the dam to about a half mile below it. And 2 of those, Big Indian Rock and Little Indian Rock, were recorded by Donald Cadzel and others, but the other rocks were not recorded until I recorded them in the 1990s. I was able to receive a grant from the PHMC to record all of these petroglyphs. So in 2002, we set out to map, measure, photograph, catalog all of the petroglyphs at these 6 rocks. And it turns out I think we came up with about 450 of them. And this just shows how they were cataloged and how they were mapped. And actually, as a little low, we found 530 in total, 400 Native American and 110 modern ones that we call them Euro style petroglyphs. This is Benjamin Latrobe's map again, and you can see that all of these sites fell along the main channel of the Susquehanna. This is the old course of the river. Back in 1801, they actually blasted a channel along the Lancaster County shoreline in the hope that they could make the river more navigable. But the petroglyph sites were never easy to get to. They still aren't. I mentioned to Jerry before we started today that I've actually not been able to get out to the petroglyphs at all this whole year because of the water situation. Okay, so this is what you came to see. This is Big Indian Rock. These are some of the carvings that are on Big Indian Rock. The rock is about 30 feet wide, 60 feet long. It's big enough that you can put 20 or 30 people on top of that rock with no trouble. All of the petroglyphs are carved around the perimeter of the rock, which leads me to believe that this could have been used as a meeting place, a place where they conducted ceremony. You could have a large group out there without having them actually standing on the petroglyphs. And I should say at this point, I should have said right at the beginning, that Native American rock art sites are Native Americans see these rock art sites as sacred places. The act of creating the petroglyphs themselves are seen by many people as a sacred act. And whereas in the 1930s, they were considered prehistoric graffiti. We now understand that these images took a large investment of time and energy to create. They were created on the bosom of Mother Earth. The Earth is our mother isn't just a bumper sticker slogan to Native people. You don't want to desecrate your mother, and so these images were done with purpose. Little Indian Rock is much smaller than Big Indian Rock, maybe 30 by 40 feet. You can see Big Indian Rock in the background there. Even though it's a smaller rock, it has really an incredible number of petroglyphs on it, over 150 petroglyphs. And if there is if there's a site in the Northeast United States that has a better grouping of petroglyphs than this, let me know, because there isn't. This is, if you want to see a spectacular expression of rock art, this is the place to do it. This is what Little Indian Rock looked like before Safe Harbor Dam was built. You can see that it was not that Lake Aldred. It was an area of rapids. Really a much different scene on the river. But when you look off onto the hillsides, there's no development down there, and the hillsides look pretty much the way they would have when the native people were out here creating those things. This is Circle Rock. It got that name because of the concentric circles that are carved on one of the rocks there. This is Conestoga Rock. It only has a few petroglyphs on it, but one of the images on the upper left there, really nice image of a wolf or a fox. And Eagle Rock, named because of the eagles or thunderbird figures. It also has a human figure that appears to point at the spot on the horizon where the sun rises on the first day of summer. Maybe a coincidence. And it has a really nice carving of a serpent that is done in relief. And by that I mean the carving was created by removing material to either side, as opposed to the other carvings that we see, which are fully carved into the surface of the rock, which I believe is mica schist. Correct, Jerry?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And this is very hard um, uh, exposure of mica schist. It's infused with a lot of quartz, and it makes it really resistant to wear. And I'll just throw in so I don't forget later on that even in the 1860s, people were saying that it would only be a few more years before they were completely eroded away. Have been able to take measurements from plaster casts that were done in the early 1900s. We took measurements of the casts and compared them to the actual petroglyphs themselves, and it turns out that the casts are shallower than the petroglyphs, which you would expect the opposite to be true. When you make the cast, you make a negative cast, the plaster shrinks a little bit. You make a positive cast from that, it shrinks a little bit more. So they're slightly shallower than the petroglyphs themselves, which leads me to believe that they aren't on the verge of disappearing. It was a matter of the time of day when the people saw them. If you see them on a cloudy day or when the sun's directly overhead, you can be standing right on top of them and not see them. They don't have the kind of patina that you see on the petroglyphs out west. Um, when the sun's at a low angle, they are really spectacular. And as you can kind of see when I was going through the previous slides, the rocks vary greatly in the size and character from 60 feet, 40 by 60 feet down to like 10 by 20 feet. Some of them are smooth, some of them are really, really rough. So I mentioned the petroglyphs on Big Indian Rock occur around the perimeter. Little Indian Rock, they occur on every good carving surface. So, what do they mean? Well, some of the images look pretty much like pretty easy to distinguish what they are. And here we have two. There's a wolf and a bear. That the petroglyphs are very similar, easy to identify. So they might have just been representations of those animals. One of the things that tells us that they were more than just representational images are these things called cupules, the dots that are carved into the rock. And a number of these, many of these are carved right next to other figures. So they are, we call them associated cupules. And what they do is they take these images from being just representational images. I see a person, I draw a person, to a representational image. So those two dots beside him, we don't know what those dots mean, but they probably mean something. Okay, so they're meant to transmit some sort of information. Now, uh, for example, the Safe Harbor petroglyphs are about a 2-day walk from the head of the Chesapeake Bay. So they may indicate that it takes 2 days to walk from Safe Harbor um, to uh, uh, Port Deposit. And by the way, those cupules there are about the size of a $50. We've done experimental archaeology using a stone hammer, like a cobble, river cobble, and a chisel, which we find the quartz makes a good chisel. to make one of those dots that's maybe a little bigger than an inch in diameter and a quarter-inch deep takes about 30 minutes. So there are carvings on Little Indian Rock of serpents that are 9 feet long. So you can imagine how long it would take to create one of those things. So we say these are iconographic images. They're images that are used to represent ideas, subjects, or themes that are important to different cultures. And the image on the left there with the different versions of a Christian cross, we can see how images that could have similar meaning vary from site to site. So when you're out west, you'll see similar images to what we see at Safe Harbor, but they'll be slightly different. But a lot of the meanings are actually cross-cultural. They go beyond a specific Native American cultural group. They used to say that Native people weren't intelligent enough to create their own system of writing. Well, now we're so smart that we don't need words to describe things. We have these things that we call like icons on our telephones or the symbols on traffic signs. And if you're from another culture, you might not understand that image on the right there means that you are not supposed to go to your left as you advance. So for us to interpret what these symbols mean is really a challenge. Well, these images are images of what we call thunderbirds or man eagles. It's a symbol that is used throughout North America. The symbol on the left, you can see feathers hanging down from the wings of that thunderbird. The one on the right doesn't have the feathers. So possibly the one on the right represents the symbol of the Thunderbird, which is really acknowledging the gift of rain. So the Native people would use this symbol to give thanks to Creator for bringing the rain. On a simple level, you can think of the thunderbird slapping his wings together as making the thunder with the storms. On the left, the thunderbird that has the feathers hanging down from his wings might actually symbolize a person who has that stature of a thunderbird or a man eagle. And in Native society, eagle feathers are often given as a reward for contributions to the society, and you can think of the war bonnets that the Plains people wore that was a symbol of their courage in battle, a reward for their courage in battle. So we might have a person, we might have a religious symbol. Some of these might be directional markers. Like I said, the man with the 2 dots might indicate that you walk south for 2 days to get to the bay. The one on the left might indicate where the sun rises on the first day of summer. And the rocks themselves line up in groups of 3, which makes me wonder if they weren't chosen because of their position in the river, that they might be directional markers in themselves. They had hundreds of rocks to choose from. Why did they just choose these? We have animal tracks. The ones on the left, if you're a believer of the eastern woodland buffalo, subspecies of the plains buffalo who didn't travel in big herds and supposedly roamed a little bit into this area. On the left, we have bear tracks. In the center picture, bird tracks, human footprints. Down in the lower right, we have elk tracks and some other bird tracks on the lower left. We have a group of animals who are traveling to the east on the bottom photo. And on the top photo, we have a serpent, which could represent maybe one of the creeks, Conestoga or Pequea Creek in Lancaster, as well as being a serpent figure. We have on the upper left, this is a unique grouping of petroglyphs. It's about 2.5 feet in diameter on Little Indian Rock, but if you look carefully, you can see a bird track, deer tracks. There's a tiny human footprint, like an infant-sized human footprint, and the curvy line could be interpreted as maybe a serpent track, along with a number of cupules. This may have been a storytelling aid. It may have given the storyteller some cues in the story that he's telling. The image on the bottom is on the left is a person who appears to be holding a bow and arrow, and with an animal on the right that he appears to be hunting. The bow itself is important because it tells us that the petroglyphs, that petroglyph would have been created in the last, say, 12 to 1500 years, because that's when the bow and arrow was introduced in this area. And some of these symbols may be images that relate to the native people's religion. And I think I go into a little more detail on that. Yeah. So you see the image of a human figure down in the lower left. A human figure, it looks like in his right hand, he's carrying an animal, and in his left hand, he's carrying a bow. Well, we don't have to rely entirely on the guesses of archaeologists to interpret these things. We can do something that seems obvious, but is not. We could talk to people from cultures who made them. So the image on the upper left is an image that was painted onto a birch bark scroll by I believe an Ojibwe medicine man. He described that figure as representing a medicine man holding a medicine bag that was made of an otter skin. So that might be the representation on the rock at Little Indian Rock. Up above him, you see those curved lines and an image on Little Indian Rock there to the right. Those curved lines were interpreted by the medicine person as representing a hill where medicine people go to receive a vision. So it could be that Little Indian Rock was a place where medicine people went to meditate and receive messages from their creator. One of the interesting things about Algonquian rock art And I'll just say that we think that the safe harbor petroglyphs were created by an Algonquian cultural group, and Algonquian people are like the Lenape or Delaware in in Delaware, the Nanacokes, the Wampanoags, most of the native people in the Northeast were Algonquian cultural groups, as opposed to the Susquehanna, who were Iroquoian people from the Finger Lakes region of New York. As you saw in the early slide, we don't find any rock art in the Finger Lake regions of New York or where the Iroquoian people lived. So we attribute it to the people who lived here before the Susquehannock arrived in the mid 1500s. And those people we know of as the Shanks Ferry people. They were also people who lived in settled villages, practiced agriculture, and they lived in this area from about 11 or 1200 AD to 1500 AD. So that's about the time period that we think the safe harbor petroglyphs were created. The image that I have on the screen now is of a rock art site in um, Ontario, Canada. And I have this uh, because this rock art is a piece of rock art that is found in a typical landscape where we find rock art. And the typical landscape where we find rock art, Algonquian rock art, is a place where the earth, the sky, and water come together. And there is also oftentimes a place where we can enter into the earth. And in this case, in Ontario, you have a rock that's not located near the water, but if you put your ear down to that crevice, you can actually hear water running underneath the rock. So we have the same thing going on at Safe Harbor. When the water's pulled down, at Little Indian Rock, when they're working on the dam doing maintenance, it exposes a void here's a one geology tidbit that I'll throw in here. So this void was created. We're looking at the upper left picture. The section above my head at one point was perched on top of the section on the left side or on the right side of that photo. At some point in the ancient geologic past, that slid down and created a void. And you can actually look in one end of that rock island and see out the other side when the water's low. These are all bedrock. This is all bedrock in the river. There's also a rock shelter in underneath Big Indian Rock. So, it's a place where the earth, sky, water come together, and you can actually enter in. And in the worldview of the Native American, that could represent a place where you could return to the womb of Mother Earth. So you could go in there, meditate, maybe receive a message from Creator, and then come back out into the world that we spend most of our time in. So we have a medicine man holding the otter skin bag. The upper image, you can see the image of a person that has what look like horns or antennas, which is a representation of a medicine person. We go to the image on the right where we have that Vision Quest hill as one possibility. But you can see that that hill, the three lines actually converge into what could be seen as a head with antenna coming out of the head. And we can look at a painted image from the Great Lakes area of a horned underwater serpent that they call Ginnebick. that has very much a similar form. And it fits in very nicely with the petroglyphs here because, these horned underwater serpents would have a place to live in the deeps. And I think it's also interesting that all of the rock art sites are contained in that same area of the river that has these amazing deeps. We have various depictions of thunderbirds, and this goes back to those Christian crosses. You can see the different variations of that symbol, universal symbol on the right of that serpent. We also have the topographical feature of Safe Harbor that it's an amazing sky dome. We live in Pennsylvania, Penn's Woods. There were not a lot of places that had amazing views of the sky the way they did from the rocks at Safe Harbor. The way the river turns, it actually looks like you're in the middle of a bowl, completely surrounded by the hillsides. It makes it a great place to observe happenings in the sky because you can use points on the horizon to mark where these celestial events occur. This is a view of a petroglyph on Circle Rock, and you can see these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cupules that are arranged very much like the mini constellation of the Pleiades, which are known worldwide, have special significance to Native people worldwide, and are often referred to on this continent as the Seven Sisters. It's part of the Taurus constellation, but it's unique, the only constellation in the sky that looks like that, like a mini Little Dipper. On the now submerged section of Little Indian Rock, we have a figure that looks very much like it could represent a solar eclipse. So you have the star shape that's carved into the rock, and at the top of that star shape, you have a circle that is carved in relief. It actually looks like it's emerging from the rock. And it illustrates another feature of the native worldview, and that's the concept of duality, that everything happens, there's a negative and positive, man, woman, light, dark, happy, sad. For every action, there's a reaction. So this is nice that the sun is carved into the rock, and the moon, if that's what it is left in relief. We also have what I call the calendar app, and this involves the large serpents that are carved on the petroglyphs. And these are all things that you are observations that you don't really have to interpret. They're scientifically proven. You could say that sure, one of the serpents lines up with the sunrise on the first day of summer, but all of the serpents line up with one of these solar positions. So that kind of takes away the just random aspect of it. This is what it looks like on the first day of winter and the first day of summer on Little Indian Rock. The photo on the left there is photoshopped to make it show up better. But you can see that serpent aligns exactly with the place where the sun rises on the first day of winter and sets on the first day of summer, just like it should astronomically. And if you're to go out on Little Indian Rock on the first day of spring or the first day of fall, you'll see that there are two serpents, which is interesting because the sun rises in that spot twice a year. And they align exactly with where the sun rises on the first day of the equinox. Now, because of the hills uh, along the river, the sun doesn't rise due east. So these images, they had to observe where the sun rose to carve those petroglyphs so that they would be aligned. Now there is another serpent that aligns with where the sun sets on the spring and fall equinox. So you don't have to go to Chichen Itza to see this. If anyone is familiar with the pyramid in Chichen Itza on the Yucatan Peninsula, you'll see that the Mayans, 1,200 miles away from the Susquehanna, were also um, marking the first day of spring with a solar serpent. And if you look right beside that pink umbrella, to the right of that pink umbrella, you see the serpent's head. And then the shadow of the corners, the steps of that pyramid, are projected onto that wall in the form of a shadow serpent. It boggles my mind to think that people who are separated by such a distance would use the same image to mark the same celestial event. Okay, do we still have a couple minutes, Jerry?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. He said we have to be done by 11, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to delve into speculation here a little bit, and bring you a story that was told to me by a uh, Mexican elder, not from the Mayan people, but from the Aztec or the Mexica people. And I brought this elder up to see Little Indian Rock back in the 1980s. And he looked at the figures and he said, "Well, I can't interpret what these people, what these petroglyphs are saying because I'm not from this area. You have to know the landscape and the culture to be able to interpret them. But I do recognize this human figure here with the big feet and the big hands because he's one of us." And he told me a story of the legend of the four arrows, that back in ancient times, and we can go back by date because the Aztecs had a very accurate calendar. Um, one of the cycles on this calendar is 988 years long. And so if you go back from the founding of Mexico City, 988 years, was the time when people went to the top of a high mountain in the Valley of Mexico. They shot arrows in the four directions, and then they sent people out in those four directions to see what the world around them was like. And so they went as far south as Nicaragua. Uh, in the Aztec language, that means Nicanawat, which is this is where we stopped. They went to the east, to the west, and they went in a large spiral through North America, supposedly going to places like Serpent Mound in Ohio and Little Indian Rock in the Susquehanna. You see the man with the big hands and big feet they called Huemat, and he had big hands because he was the leader. He was in control of the situation, has the whole world in his hands. And he has the big feet because he traveled a lot. This was actually a multi-generational migration. So over a period of 900 years. Now, if you talk to an archaeologist about that, they may say that that's highly unlikely. I'll remind them that we have things up here that the Susquehanna people grew, like corn, beans, and squash and tomatoes and tobacco that all originated in the Valley of Mexico. I don't know, how did they get there? I can also go to my Google Maps app. If you'd like to see how long it takes to walk to Chichen Itza from here or to central Mexico from here, just type it in and go to the pedestrian icon on there, and it will tell you how many days it takes to walk to Mexico from here. And I'll give you a little hint. It's not that long. You can walk there in 6 months, no problem. So anyhow, what's the proof of this? Well, that was the big question. The elder said to me, "Okay, I have a task for you, so I'd like you to prove this." And here's my proof. So in the left-hand picture there, I am standing in a pair of footprints on a rock just above Little Indian Rock. And when you stand in those footprints, you are facing exactly the mouth of the Conestoga. Let's see, I put river in here. When I'm in Lancaster, I have to call it a river. When I'm in York, I can call it a creek because that's what we all call it. So, so if you go up the Conestoga River, um, first you'll pass a couple Shanks Ferry settlements. One of those settlements is in a place called Slackwater. And when that settlement was excavated in the 1990s, they discovered that the people there were also observing the sky, that they had had lines of posts in the ground that aligned with sunrises, sunsets on certain days of the year. So it gives us a better indications Shanks Ferry people created the petroglyphs. You continue up through Lancaster, you get up there just below Ephrata, and there's a fork in the creek. The map makers decide to make the Conestoga go to the right, but we're going to take a left there and go up the Cocalico Creek. And for my purposes, I'll just call the whole darn creek the Cocalico Creek or river instead of the Conestoga. Has anyone ever been to Cocalico in northern Lancaster County? The picture on yep, okay. So if you go to that intersection known as Cocalico and go up the dirt road, up the mountain, it's paved now. Eventually you come to a boulder field on the left side of the road. In the middle of that boulder field is a depression. And if you hold your ear down in that depression, you can hear the source of that river. Just like that site up there in Ontario, the source of the Cocalico and Conestoga, a place where you can see where the sky, the earth, and water come together, and the depression where you can enter into it. Well, the important part here is the word Cocalico, which, if you read the book Indian Place Names in Pennsylvania, is interpreted to mean den of serpents. We can go, and there is my daughter sitting in the depression of the rock, in the rock there behind my ancient transit. If you were to go to the Valley of Mexico, to the mountain where these folks shot the arrows to the four directions back 1,100 years ago, you would be standing in a place called Cocalico. Cocalico. And now what? Cocalico basically means the house of the snake. The serpent, if you're familiar with Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, or Kublai Khan, the Mayan serpent, or the rainbow serpent in Australia, or the symbol for medicine that has the serpents winding their way up the cane in the Greek world, or the Egyptian world, where you have a cobra um, headdress, or you're in China and they have the dragon, which is a representation of a serpent, or you're in the Viking world where they had the dragons on their boats. All of those people would tell you that the serpent is a symbol of knowledge. Of course, if you read the story of Adam and Eve, there's also that reference. Um, so we have the serpent, the place of intelligence, place of maximum intelligence, the capital. And this was actually the place where the Aztecs calibrated their calendar. And I won't get into archaeoastronomy at all, but it's a conjunction of Venus, a full moon, and another one of these calendaric cycles where they calibrated the calendar. So, um, that's so Jerry, we can argue about that after we get off the air. But the final bit of proof lays to the sides of this pair of footprints, and they were chalked in many years ago. That was an acceptable way of recording the petroglyphs. But if you look up to the two photographs there on the left, and this is the way it always is with something that's controversial, you never have clear evidence. But it looks like a human figure, and he is headed south, and I'm going to say towards Mexico. And to the right of those footprints is an image that looks kind of like, if you look at the top, you see a head with maybe a beak, and then maybe two short wings there, and then a body and a tail at the bottom. And crossing over that is an image of a serpent. And yeah, so what do you think of, let's see, a flag that has an eagle and a serpent on it? Yeah, that's right. Some of the flag of Mexico has the eagle and the serpent, and my argument is that might be what's represented at Safe Harbor too. Now, I could go into other stories that other native people from other native cultures have told me about the petroglyphs, and there are other stories of people visiting there. Um, so, it between the petroglyphs at Safe Harbor and the Walnut Island petroglyphs and the Bald Friar petroglyphs, um, it just seems like there was a lot going on the lower Susquehanna River. And we know a tiny fraction of that, but wouldn't it be great to know the whole story? One final, just to wrap up, I'll go back to that. No artifacts have been found, so they don't need to be given a site number. Well, back when we were doing our recording project in 2002, one of my co-workers had the urge to reach in one of those crevices in the rock. And when she stuck her hand in there, she said, Paul, come here quick. I have something in my hand. If I let go, it's going to fall and we'll never find it again. I said, no, I'm busy. She said, no, really, you got to come here. So I went down, stuck a stick in behind it, and we were able to recover this artifact, a legitimate artifact on the left here. And to me, that is it's about the size of a silver dollar. Um, it is a steatite soapstone, and I think it's a representation of a bird. You're looking down from above the bird. He has his wings and his head's turned that he's preening his wing feathers. It was probably made from a fragment of a soapstone bowl. It has that curvature and thickness. And I like to think that maybe it was left there by a medicine person who, as an offering um, to the creator and the ancestors that left these petroglyphs for us. So to sum it all up, I would call the safe harbor petroglyphs, the lower Susquehanna rock art, as something that is a special landscape or a sacred space where one can come closer to creator. And with that, I'll go to my ads if you'd like to learn more. There is a book available at safeharborpetroglyphs.com. I put this together last year to kind of encapsulate 40 years of experience of study and visiting the petroglyphs. I put this in here because I've had my picture taken a lot, but I've never been illustrated until Neil King, who wrote the book American Ramble a couple years ago. He just passed away this spring. A great book of man's walking journey from Washington, D.C. to New York City through York and Lancaster counties and east. His memoir of his journey. Really interesting book of which I was given a page or two. And if you'd like to visit the Safe Harbor petroglyphs, I do both kayak and boat tours to see the petroglyphs, and you can get information on Safe Harbor Petroglyphs website. Oh, and you can buy T-shirts too.
Oh boy.
Safe Harbor rock art T-shirts. And I think that's the end of my promotions. Yes, this is my land acknowledgement. For Native American rock art sites are considered sacred places. For all of us, the Safe Harbor petroglyphs are an irreplaceable part of our area's cultural heritage. And we are on native land. And we are, in fact, native people. Just depends where you're from. If you go back far enough into your ancestry, you get to the people who lived close to the earth. So thank you for hanging in there. I wasn't looking to see whether people's eyes are opened or closed, but
Fabulous job.
thank you.
Hope you all enjoyed that. A couple questions. Is the proposed Cuff Run project going to affect these petroglyphs at all?
I'm going to say no because I don't think it's going to be built.
No.
and we might want to all go down to the petroglyphs down there and say a couple prayers because that would be a darn shame, in my opinion. But I, all of that is coordinated between the three power plants down there. Now that one's going to be above Safe Harbor, so I guess if they were doing a release, Safe Harbor would have to do a release to accommodate that. And it does affect the petroglyphs because when there is a release from Safe Harbor Dam, there is a pretty good rush of water that flows through there.
Yep. When's the best time of year to do your tour?
I would say anytime because I like to go out as often as possible. The very best time of the year is from early September into mid-October. The river is generally more reliable then. We can have rain without it swelling up, and it's generally lower to begin with. And also that time of year, the particularly into October, the skies clear out and the water cools off, clears up, and the sun's low in the sky, so the visibility of the petroglyphs is really good. I run tours from next week until mid-October.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm just reading the other comments. A lot of people liked your program. Somebody did acknowledge, thank you for the land acknowledgements. That's the second time I saw that recently, and I still pick things up off of your program that I did not see the first time through.
No, I put a couple extra things in every
Oh,
time
that's
for you.
why that's
And I'll say the land acknowledgement, I've had some dealings with the National Park Service, and I was on a conference call with representatives from the Native community, and there's very mixed feelings in the Native community about that. Some are are kind of feel that it's a false um, acknowledgement. We're sorry we stole your land,
right,
but
right.
but that's the way it is. Um, but I the real acknowledgement is to respect the things that they left in this area. So
Hey, Deb, to answer your question about my background, that's Little Indian Rock.
yeah, and I'm really upset that you upstaged me, Jerry. Next time I'm going to have I'll stand in front of my 8 by 20 foot rubbing of Little Indian Rock.
Mine was out of focus. I was going to use that one, but Paul had me out to the rock number of years ago to the rocks. He had a theory about that the Little Indian and Big Indian rocks were the same rock type, and there was a fault that displaced the two. Um, they're both mica schist, as Paul said, but they are a different uh, mica schist rock between them, which is not abnormal. Mica schist can change very, very quickly. If you see it on land and walking on land, it changes very quickly in a rock outcrop from one type to another type of mica schist. So anyway,
Mhm.
all right. Don't see any other questions. I think Renee has a joke to kind of close this up here. Remind you that this has been recorded. We'll be on jonesgo.us under Zoom Rock Rooms within the hour. I'll send Paul the link so he can show it to other people. He don't have to actually do it live anymore. He can just go to the video and all that. Anyway, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that everything that you've done for me and that you showed to me, and uh, I regard you as a top priority friend. So
Okay, I'll remember that the next time I ask for a favor,
okay,
which
yeah, I'll have to
which
remember.
will be, I'm sure, very soon.
Okay, Renee, go ahead.
So it is International Joke Day. So, what do you call a dinosaur with a cowboy hat? A Tyrannosaurus Tex. And with that, I hope everyone had some chicken wings for National Chicken Wings Day as well. We'll leave you with that.
Are you having some wings after you get off the air here?
Maybe,
Oh,
maybe. If not,
maybe
I'll double up and eat 2 dozen tomorrow.
without me. Okay, gang. We're gonna see you in 2 weeks. Have a great July 4th weekend. Be safe if you dabble with anything like that. Then uh, celebrate the July 4th and be glad that we are all Americans and we're able to do things that we do, like have fun in the Zoom rock room. So again, thank you, Paul. You're the man.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
We'll see ya.